We're going to go into the realm of sensory stories and looking at some of the components of them. So sensory stories are one mechanism that you can use to support self-regulation for children. They're designed for children with over-responsivity, and that's the child who responds in an exaggerated manner to typical sensation. That the information is coming into the nervous system, but the way the nervous system is organizing, processing that information, it can come in very overwhelmingly. And consequently, the child has difficulty engaging in those day-to-day activities that would be typically part of his or her life. And also, that's the child who probably has some very ineffective routines on a day-to-day basis. We'll see a story on toothbrushing. You can think about just the eating process, the getting dressed process, the showering process, the combing the hair process. That can be just laden with all kinds of energy and emotion and behaviors just because it feels unpleasant to the child. We have 15 research studies to date to substantiate the fact that reading of those sensory stories do help in promoting the ability to engage in day-to-day occupations. And what those sensory stories do are they teach the child strategies that that child can do on a regular basis to help cope with the day-to-day events. And we see that through the reading of the sensory stories, the child is empowered through that knowledge of this helps me to feel calm. This makes the touch feel better. This helps me to sit longer. This helps me to focus. So the child is empowered knowing that there's something that I can do to make it better. I don't have to rely on anybody else, but there are things that I personally can do to make this situation better. So the targeted audience for sensory stories is that child who has over-responsivity. And as was mentioned, that would be identified by an occupational therapist primarily through assessment and through collecting a good sensory history, as in how the child has been developmentally growing up and how the child is currently doing in their response to sensation. And the intent would be that it would impact the child's engagement in day-to-day activities. So the connection between sensory processing and function. What we want is function, and what we want is the child to be able to participate in those day-to-day activities, to have efficient routines, develop good social relationships, and then have some discretionary time during the child's day. You can think about what that morning might be looking like for the child with sensory processing difficulties when you have to get up. And then you have to go to the bathroom, and then you have to brush your teeth, and then you have to get dressed, and then you have to brush your hair. All of those activities are laden with sensations that can be overwhelming. So for what one child might take a 5 to 10 minute time period to get through those routines, for another child with sensory processing difficulties, that could be an hour that's emotionally laden with all kinds of responses. So hopefully what we'll see is better engagement in day-to-day activities in the home, school, and in the community. So why sensory stories? First of all, if we think about our role as parents, as teachers, as caregivers, as therapists, as aides, our role is to empower the child and give them the knowledge, skills, and attitudes for lifelong success. Going back to that comment of our job is to work ourselves out of a job and to empower that child so that he or she can cope with day-to-day life skills. We know that the child who has over-responsive sensory modulation has a hard time engaging in those day-to-day activities. Just thinking about riding in the car. What sensations are happening? What is the child experiencing riding in the car? Or let's even extend it a bit further, riding on the school bus. What's happening on the school bus? I even saw a snarl back there. How does it smell on the school bus? What kind of noise is there on the school bus? Yeah, what kind of sights are there on the school bus? Who's bumping into the child on the school bus? How is the school bus riding, twisting and turning? Yeah, so an activity like that is laden with sensation that can be very overwhelming for the child. So because of the child's ability to modulate sensation, that child has a hard time engaging in those activities. sensory stories are one of those tools. It's not the end-all and the be-all, but it's one of those tools that you can add to your bag of tricks to help children on a day-to-day basis to get that level of participation. If we think about the category of